Hello everyone, this is Nayiri from Low Carb and Fasting. Well, today's guest is a certified nutrition coach. She currently works very closely with Dr. Angela Stanton, whom I've interviewed, by the way, and she helps her group of migraineurs. She's a recipe creator. She's the author of Terri's Carnivore Treats Cookbook. Well, she says she's real. She says she's silly. These are her words. She says, I'm real, I'm silly. I love to laugh, especially at myself. We're going to do a lot of laughing today, so stay with us. It's going to be a fun episode. Terri Haas, welcome to Low Carb and Fasting.
Thank you so much, Nayiri. It's really great to be here. Thank you.
Well, Terri, let's start with a serious topic. Now, you are certified as a nutrition coach and you're working with migraineurs in Dr. Angela Stanton's group. Now, I'll put my interview with Angela Stanton in the bottom, and I'll put all of Terri's links in the bottom as well, so do check them out. So what is that group about, and how are you able to help them?
Well, I joined that group myself as a migraineur, looking for a remedy, a solution like we all are or were, back in June of 2015. And back then, the protocol was just in its really early infancy. And when I joined, the protocol was just, it is definitely not what it is today, that's for sure. And I had really quick success with eliminating my migraines. So I have not had a migraine since June 23rd, 2015, when I joined the group. And then fast forward about 8 or 9 months later, there was just a handful or just a couple of admins in the group. And I guess my cheery attitude, and I was really a cheerleader for everybody. You know, since I was feeling great, I was supporting people. I was looking for recipes just to help people find meals, foods, that sort of thing. And I guess Angela was going on a holiday, and she needed some help with while she was going to be gone. So I got this sweet little DM and in my Facebook Messenger from Kristen saying, hey, so we were wondering if maybe you would like to be an admin. And, you know, I did one of these. I was like, who, me? Yes, you know, I was just delighted. So that's how I became an admin in her group. And then just working really closely with her over the next, well, since 2016, basically, learning the ins and outs of her protocol, and working closely, you know, ever so closely with a brilliant woman. I feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world to be able to work so closely with her and learn from her. And just the way that she's structured the protocol, especially the way that it is now, it is so streamlined. It's very easy to answer people's questions, to help people, to support them no matter where they are. We meet them wherever they're struggling, wherever they're not struggling. You know, we build them up, we lift them up. And it's more than just migraineurs, and it's more than just migraines that are helped in this group. She really admits anybody that has any sort of metabolic conditions, health issues. We've got people that have cancer there. We've got people that have autoimmune conditions, that have type 2 diabetes, that have type 1 diabetes. So we have the gamut in there. It's just really blossomed into, even though the focus is definitely on migraine, she welcomes all sorts of different lots of people, just simply to help. She loves to help. She loves to learn. Her research is never ending, and she's just so generous to share all of this for free in a Facebook group, and just to be so generous with her with everything. So in order for us to be able to help everyone efficiently, she has to have this down, and so she guides us and leads us, and then we help our members under her guise.
Well, First of all, I absolutely share your sentiments about
Yeah.
Dr. Stanton. She's an absolute delight, and I enjoyed her book, by the way. I mean, it took me a while to get through it, but I wanted it's a
Yes.
big volume. Now, and we did talk about other autoimmune diseases because the Stanton Protocol could easily apply to even me. And to
Absolutely.
some extent, as a type 1 diabetic, I do use that, or at least most of the aspects of the Stanton Protocol. Now, for people who are not familiar with it, could you give us a brief summary of what the Stanton Protocol covers or recommends?
Yes. So the Stanton Protocol is it's a low carb, high fat, or carnivore way of eating. She's got two groups. One is the low carb, high fat focus, and the carnivore in that group as well. And that group is more focused on healing, and that the foods that we eat in there are more focused on a higher set of protein macros. The muscle meat is more healing, so we want to help that stabilize our insulin. And then once you have, especially just for migraineurs, it's different for people that don't have migraine. It's a little bit more loose because they don't have the premise of getting a migraine if they kind of fall outside the guidelines or fall outside certain macros or whatever, if they don't follow so closely. And so once you're healed, and that means like no more migraines for migraineurs, no more migraines if you're off certain medications that can interfere with ketosis. And then also, when you've been invited and have stable insulin, you can move over to the keto group. And over there, the ketogenic diet isn't necessarily practiced by most of the members in that group. It's typically a keto carnivore, so it's a higher fat, but not a ketogenic therapeutic level of ketogenic, I should say. It's more still higher fat, but more emphasis on protein. So you're going to have macros maybe 60% to 70%, maybe maximum, whatever, but you don't want to be in therapeutic ketosis. We want to look for nutritional ketosis when we're over there. But most people end up staying over to the protocol group just because it's just so easy. And it once you're healed, you kind of can segue over, like I said, to a little bit higher fat macros. And you're using ketones a little bit more, and you just kind of sail and feel great. You just don't understand what life was even like prior to, having migraine or feeling sick,
Yeah, I think there are different definitions of keto, obviously online, but my community, my type 1 community, at least those of us who are having great success with our stable blood sugars,
Right.
our focus is on protein and
Mm-hmm.
obviously minimal carbohydrates, if any.
Correct.
Protein is the focus and fat is moderate. So it's different from your classic ketogenic diet
Mm-hmm.
devised 100 years ago, particularly for epileptic patients. So it's a different
Correct.
from
Yes.
therapeutic ketosis, as you put it. I was interviewing Angela. One of the most striking things, in fact, it's in the book as well, is that not all migraineurs experience headaches, because that's what we were led to believe. So all the
Yes.
other symptoms she mentions in the book, I thought, I think my husband is a migrainer too, because he has all the
Really?
other symptoms except the headaches. And I self-diagnosed him as a migrainer since reading Angela's book. So do you see many people without the classic migraine headaches in the group?
You know, it's really interesting because after doing this for so long, not that you profile people, but you definitely have some profiles of people, right? And there are people that do have only aura, and that's it. And then there are people that have vestibular migraine, and vestibular is different than aura. That is, they feel it's dizzy. They kind of have, they feel off in their vestibular system. So, and that doesn't always come with head pain either. That can just be severe dizziness, vertigo type thing. So that sounds miserable, but all of it's miserable. None of it's fun. I have had Aura a couple of times. And to be honest, my auras have been fun. I enjoyed my auras. I knew what they were, so I wasn't afraid. I just kind of sat there and had a party in my head, and they didn't last very long. I wished I'd had those more often than the really bad pain that I had had. The type of migraine I usually had was a hemiplegic migraine, and those mimic stroke. You lose one side of your body control. So I say this a lot, like especially in the group to people that have hemis. I would sit there, my whole side of my face would be down like this, and I would look in the mirror and I'd be like, just trying to make faces, and it looked like I'd been at the dentist, and trying to move my arm. I couldn't move my arm. First couple times it's very scary, but then you get it over and over and over, and you're just like, oh wow, what a phenomena, and then you read Angela's book and you're like, wow, that's all that's going on, is just that, just cortical spreading depression. So it's just fascinating. It's fascinating still to me after all this time.
It's absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. So what exactly is the aura? What would you experience if you have aura? It's one of the things Angela mentions, and in fact, she describes in detail in the book.
Yes.
But what's aura?
An aura is something that you, as a visual disturbance that you see, regardless if you have your eyes open or closed. So if you have your eyes closed, like if there's something wrong with your vision, then when you close your eyes, you won't necessarily see that, is my understanding. It's been so long since I've had them. They were like in the beginning of my migraine, and it's been 30 years now, 30 plus years that I've had a migraine. So I'm sorry, since I first started having migraine. My auras that I had were just little commas that just kind of look like little fireworks commas that would just kind of go pew, and they would disappear like that. I've read all different types of auras people have had, and I don't know that is something that we can even describe to another person, or even another person that has aura, because I think it's very individual. I think since it is dependent on the voltage in your particular brain, I don't know if it depends on your particular experiences, or what you know what I mean. I don't know. That would be an Angela question for sure.
If I were to summarize the diet that's recommended by the Stanton Protocol, these are the three things I would say. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. First of all, high fat, and that does include dairy fat. People might be surprised about that. Second, what was I going to say? Okay, so no sugars. Yeah.
No added sweeteners.
No added sweeteners either. Three, good amount of protein.
So it's not necessarily high fat. It's more, so I guess if you're doing the low carb, high fat, it's not high fat, but I guess it's going to be higher fat than what people are used to. I know members have a hard time. First of all, they have a hard time meeting the protein needs. And then they have a hard time somewhat meeting the fat needs. And then, interestingly enough, because the recommended plant foods for the protocol proper low carb, high fat are very, very low glycemic and low carb, they have an inordinate amount of plant foods on their plate. And so they really, like, they get disgruntled over that. They'll say, well, I've got this, and this, and I've got this salad and these raspberries and this squash I have to finish, and I'm full. And I'm like, we say, well, yes, I mean, it's an adjustment, So the fat is higher on protocol proper than I think that people are used to in their regular eating. If you move to protocol carnivore, that fat is a little bit less than I think people tend to eat if you just give them free reign. So like when I work with protocol members, without a doubt, without fail, every single one of them comes in eating higher fat. When I've said, well, I've started protocol and I've started eating carnivore, but I'm not tracking my macros or anything. Okay, that's great. And I mean, I can't think of one person that I've ever said, well, wow, you're the first person that's ever actually eaten the fat we need to eat. Everyone is eating more the keto carnivore side of fat. So I'm, I'm the bearer of bad news, because it's like, well, I'm sorry to have to say this. I mean, you get to enjoy your fat still, but we have to reduce that and we have to increase your protein. And yes, protocol, absolutely. We love our dairy in there. We are very dairy positive in there. And it's really interesting to be in or outside that space, because I had no idea that dairy was such a demon. And I don't defend myself anymore. I proudly, like, all of my posts, I've got my cup of half and half with, I don't drink, whatever. It doesn't make any difference what I drink. I have my cup of half and half. That's what I drink, a cup of half and half or two with a meal. Not every meal, but every day. And I have that in my photos and stuff, And so, I mean, yeah, how else do people get their fat? I'm not going to eat tallow, just not going to do it. I'm going to have my heavy whipping cream. I'm going to have my cheese. I'm going to have my half and half.
Yeah, they make a regular appearance in your in your recipes too. It's a difficult. I think that's one of the hardest ones for outsiders to adjust to, I think, because almost in everyone's mind, oh, there is the enemy.
Yes.
There is
Yes.
inflammatory. Well, if it is causing inflammation, why is it not causing inflammation in all these thousands of people who are migraineurs? They're actually healing through
Yes. Yes.
dairy protein and also dairy fat. I left one thing out. I left the salt out.
Yes, ma'am. Big component of protocol. Yes. Yes. Migraine is caused from being taken out of electrolyte balance. And so we manage our electrolyte balance throughout the day with taking salt with waters, as well as meeting a specific potassium to sodium ratio in our foods. Or meals, I should say. Yeah. So that saved my life. Salt. I was one when I joined protocol. I had always eaten pretty fat heavy. I was a beef lover, never much plant, no vegetables, not many fruits. But salt was the enemy. I never put salt on anything but my French fries. And so, I joined and I was like, let me have that salt. And that was it. Yes.
You'd be surprised. I'm not a migrainer as far as I can tell. I would have self-diagnosed myself if I were.
You sure would have.
But I still have in the mornings, because I don't have an early morning meal. And what you see in this glass now is salt. It's salty water. We're recording this in the morning. So I'm fasted. It's 10:30 a.m. at my end, probably an hour at 9:30 a.m.
Not yet.
Your end. I'm having water until my first meal, probably about 12. So this gets me through the morning, salted water.
Cheers. I've got one of the Health Principle electrolyte supplements that Angela designed. So it's got the perfect dose of salt, sodium in it. And so I have one of those with my 8 ounces of water. And I'm the same. I usually don't eat until afternoon as well.
That's perfect. Right, Terri, what got you into recipe creation? Because that's not an easy task. That really isn't an easy task, especially within certain limits or within a protocol,
parameters.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's really how it started. So like I said earlier, I'm on Facebook. I was a stay-at-home mom. This was back in 2015 at the time, I suppose. Yeah, 2015. So I'm looking on Facebook and seeing I'm in the group, whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, how can I help people? The protocol, like I said, was not very formed then. So currently the protocol is added sweetener, grain, starch, flour, and seed oil free. And we don't really promote nuts either. Like we don't talk about nuts, and we kind of try to get people away from nuts since they're so highly anti-nutrient. But back when I first started in 2015, we still were eating like Ezekiel. We could eat sprouted grains like Ezekiel bread, roasted nuts. Like now nuts and seeds need to be raw because you don't want to heat those because they'll give you those PUFA oils, right? So, and we ate potatoes. And so essentially for me, and there was no added sweeteners though, and no added sweeteners whatsoever, and no flours either. So for me, essentially that was my diet. I was already eating Ezekiel bread. I would eat a half a piece as a sandwich, because I loved all the cheese and meat on there, and then leave my crust because it was, the bread. And I ate potatoes, right? And I never liked sweet potatoes, so I didn't eat those. But so it was very easy to just kind of scroll through Facebook and go, oh, look, here's a food. And I would just kind of toss out foods like a dish, I should say, maybe a sauteed mushrooms or something, oh, have this with some chicken, pair this with that, that kind of thing. And then it got to be a little bit more involved. I don't really exactly remember. I just got to be more involved with just the food side of it. It excited me to be able to help in that manner. I think I know one of the other admins is, just like Angela, math whiz, super smart. And I'm just over here, feeling inadequate. Like I needed to step up. So that's where I kind of thought, well, I'll go ahead and take the food portion. And then, so I started with cloud bread. I didn't invent any of these things, but I, saw cloud bread. I saw chaffles. So I brought that to the group. And initially, Angela was not really happy with that. She did not like the copycats because she felt that would just compel everyone to still desire and want those other foods, which makes perfect sense. Back then, it made sense. Back then, it made sense. Now it doesn't make so much sense, but back then it did make sense. So fast forward to the coronavirus when everything got shut down, and I am single. I live alone. And so I'm in my own bubble. It's just me, myself, and I, like many, many people, right? And I remember sitting down one day and I wanted to have a sandwich. I am not a big fan of eggs. I just don't, they taste like metal to me whenever I eat them plain. So cloud bread and chaffles are very eggy tasting to me. And I'm also not a big fan of pork rinds either. I'm just not a big fan of that type of fat. So I couldn't even like get a poffle or something like that, anyway, it's still eggy. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna figure out something. I'm gonna figure out a bread recipe. I'm gonna find something. So I got on the Google, and I was in the Google, and then I was in the deep dark Google, and the deep darker Google. I probably was on that thing for I don't even know how long. But when I came up from my phone, I came up like this. What? And I ordered all the things, and I ran to my kitchen and I got everything. So what I found was this recipe called soul bread. Mm-hmm. And this woman, her name is Gloria Cook, and she now goes by Soul's Song. Soul Song, and the bread is soul bread. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. And so when I looked at it, it was whey protein powder, which was something we were kind of already using in the group a little bit. I think we were anyway. And then there was olive oil and a little bit of stevia and some baking, some leavening ingredients, and then cream cheese. And so let's just talk about how brainwashed. I'm 58 now. And I was of the era that we still used butter to cook with when I was younger. But when I got older and started cooking, we were already switched to canola oils. Okay. So, yes. So when I looked at the recipe, I thought, well, I wonder if you can switch olive oil for butter. Okay. Like that question now just blows me away. But like I didn't. So I Googled that and I was like, wow, you can. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to make this recipe and omit the stevia and swap it all out. Oh, Nayiri, I squealed that whole day. I jumped up and down when I looked at this loaf of bread and I'm like, oh, I have found the holy grail of bread. Like, where is this? How come nobody knows about this? How come this isn't known? And it's still
you're
not
getting me
very
so
well
excited.
known. I know, I have goosebumps. I'm serious. So I had the bread, I'm eating the bread. And I thought, well, this bread is going to be no good if I can't get this bread into the group. So now I'm going to have to stroke Angela and pet Angela because I already know how she felt about the cloud bread and the chaffles. I posted some things and she's like, those have to go. So I had to delete my posts. Okay. And then over time, a couple of members started posting some awful stuff, and she let them post that stuff. And not let them, I should say, but she allowed that, I should say. And so then, there was I was posting things on my wall about the bread. And then like some of the members who I'm friends with would see it and they would say, is this protocol friendly? And so I would tag Angela and I would say, I don't know, let's see what Angela says, just trying to think like, if the members thought so, kind of thing. And so Angela said, no, we can't do this. This is too much like a lookalike. And I was like, doggone it. I just know they know this is good. And so fast forward to about a year later, and there was a situation where somebody was actually taking some of Angela's intellectual property from the protocol. Unbeknownst to this woman, I honestly believe she was trying to do the right thing, and she ended up doing the right thing. But I kind of was on her Twitter and just kind of saying, hey, so this isn't your information, that kind of stuff, And so it was kind of an ordeal for a couple of days. And so since I kind of helped squash it, I'm like, you know what? Maybe now Angela might be a bit more amenable to this. So I went and wrote a big, long thing, and I hit every point that she had like argued against this. And, I just said, if you just really think about it, this would mean so much to me. And she said, yes. And so even funnier yet, Nayiri, it took her, she loved cloud bread. It took her another year before she ever made the soul bread. And I call it MSB now because it's modified and to pay homage to the original creator and the original name, call it MSB. That woman eats it every single day without fail. It's single day she eats that.
Terri, I'm going to read. I have it on my phone here. So I have the ingredients. I took a screenshot yesterday. Okay. So the ingredients, and we'll discuss the ingredients. Okay, so yes. whey protein or milk protein, and we'll discuss those if, milk protein is the same as powdered milk, for example. I mean, these are the questions you get, right? Baking soda, which everyone knows. Now, cream of tartar is very familiar to everyone. Glycine is something we might need to discuss.
Ma'am.
Cream or ricotta cheese. And what kind of cream? If someone goes for cream, for example, softened unsalted butter, very clear, 4 eggs in this recipe, baking powder, beef gelatin powder, and you just bake it for 45 minutes. Now, let's go back to the whey protein or milk protein powder. What exactly are those? I mean, whey protein, obviously, I presume it's unflavored one, right? You don't want a chocolate flavor.
Correct. All unflavored. We look for usually just typically whey protein in there, no other ingredient in there. So whey protein was the original recipe for that, and that's what I used forever. And I can't remember, but so somebody in the group or Angela, I can't remember who came up with finding this milk protein powder. It is not milk powder. It's not whole milk powder. It's not non-fat milk powder. It's actually milk protein powder. And it is comprised of 80% casein protein powder and 20% whey protein powder. So that's where that comes in. And it gives a completely different texture and a completely different taste than the whey protein powder. So if you intermix, it's cream cheese or ricotta cheese. So not heavy whipping cream itself. It's those 2 cheeses. So from now on, I'll go ahead and write out the whole thing so people don't get confused. And that was also, so when I finally got the recipe into the group, and that was in about 2021, I think it was. Yeah, about a year after Corona and everything. So that's been 3 years now. The group's been from maybe 10,000 members up to now 17,000 members. So you have that many people, captive audience, want to eat bread, want to cure their migraines, to get rid of their migraines. I've had the distinct, unique advantage of a test audience that is willing and loving. And not only that, ask me how many times they've come and shared things that they have created using the recipe that I shared and spurned a whole new recipe. So I have a list that keeps growing exponentially just from ideas that I haven't even made in my kitchen yet. I haven't even, got onto my channel yet, that are just waiting. And, people are just, I'm like, you guys aren't going to believe what I have coming. Like, literally, I don't think there's anything we can't carnivorize,
So you are a carnivore now, and all these ingredients, obviously, I mean, if you want to argue for cream of tartar and things, but
Yeah.
most of these ingredients are carnivore friendly. Depends on how strict you want to be on carnivore. Let's talk about, you are carnivore. So I really want, okay, so beef gelatin powder. Does it have to be beef gelatin powder?
No, the protocol and my carnivore diet follows Angela's protocol. And her carnivore is all meats, all seafood, all seaweed, mushrooms, eggs, and dairy, with the exception of lactose-free dairy and fermented. So like no kefir, no yogurt, no quark. And that's because when those fermented and those hit your saliva, the body recognizes it as straight glucose since the lactose has been removed. So those, because we have seen, like Angela does some like 5-hour glucose tests, which is similar to like a Kraft and C2 test. And it is evident that those foods spike glucose and then have hypoglycemic events, and they adversely affect insulin. So those things are not on protocol. Obviously you can eat whichever you want to eat or whatever, but so those are not things that we eat in order to heal our insulin. The beef gelatin was also not an original ingredient in the recipe. It originally called for xanthan gum. And so in order to make it a little bit more carnivore friendly, and then we eventually substituted beef gelatin. I also on protocol, we include spices in our eating as well. And that's also another big point of contention I've seen out in the outside of the group, my little bubble. I don't have too many haters or too many trolls. I don't really let it affect me. I've been eating this way for 9 years. There's nothing you're going to tell me that is going to affect me. I mean, I have stable insulin. I don't have any issues. I'm the best health ever. I'm great. So I can handle a little bit of immature trolling because I have the knowledge to be able to handle it if I feel like addressing it, So these ingredients that are outside a typical carnivore eating, I don't even call them carnivore adjacent. I don't call them carnivore friendly. I literally just say, this is what I eat. I'm a carnivore. If you look at my eating over a full year, the amount of these things that you find in my diet that comprise plant foods are probably less than a true carnivore in the wild eat. That's how I feel.
That's a good way to put it. I think carnivore, I mean, someone described it as 70% animal based, and it kind of you don't need strict definitions, in my opinion. If it's working for you and you're adding black pepper to your steak, well, go for it. Honestly. Now,
that's one thing I've actually omitted from my diet. I used to like black pepper. Now it's too spicy and too strong for me. So, your palate changes when you remove things. You don't need all those bursts of flavor to enhance dull tasting foods like bread and pasta, because those taste dull. They're not tasty.
Oh my goodness, I don't even crave them anymore. Like, pasta is like so dull and bland. How did I eat that? Okay, so what was the other thing? Now, glycine. What is glycine? And what role does it play in this recipe?
So that is really interesting that you bring that up, and this whole this thing, because today I actually had I'm going to be making a reel on glycine, because I get that question so often, and it's something again that I don't even think about because we do it in the migraine group. So glycine is an amino acid, and it is found in almost all animal foods. I think it's in some animal foods as well. But when you process these dairy protein powders, obviously things and components are removed, and glycine is one of the things that is removed. And so there is a 2-to-1 glycine to methionine ratio that we keep in the group. And since we track everything, we know the glycine levels and we know the methionine levels. And so that's why I add the glycine. I know that I didn't know this until, well, I've known it for a while, but I didn't know this previously. But people use glycine as a sweetener in foods, which to me, as a super taster, I don't understand that in any way, shape, or form because it tastes like sweet and low to me. It tastes disgusting. It tastes like a poison. So the thought of adding that to sweeten something would never occur to me because it's not sweet to me. But I know that my palate isn't the same as everyone else's. And I know people do use it as an added sweetener. That's not why I use it at all. It will not affect anything in any of the recipes that I use. You're welcome to leave it out. I know some people have disordered eating and can be triggered by even the thought of something that might lend itself to sweet. So we have members like that in the group. And so we just simply say, please just leave that out. Whatever you need to do for you, just leave that out.
I mean, the quantity you're adding is just
it's very,
so it's like 1 teaspoon in a large loaf of bread.
Yes.
I don't think that's enough. Even if you added 1 teaspoon of sugar, for example, sugar,
Exactly.
it would
Right.
barely taste
And
sweet.
And as a matter of fact, that glycine methionine ratio wasn't even something that Angela learned until maybe 18 months ago. So for the first 18 months or so of eating that bread, we were not doing that. So, and many members missed that as well. So it's, like I said, it's not that important, but since we're tracking, we just are trying to do it the right way.
Well, it makes sense to add it because I presume it's an amino acid, as you said, so it's along the same lines as leucine, for example. And we know that
Right.
past the age of 40, your leucine levels are dropping. It's probably the same with glycine. I don't know that much about glycine, but probably glycine levels are dropping too. And because Angela called herself protein body, and so so she's very pro protein.
Right.
It makes sense to add the glycine to this
Exactly.
recipe. I don't have, I have to order these on Amazon, I think, the ingredients.
And so one of the
I
questions I
really
got
don't have
was,
any of these other than the baking powder and the baking soda in my cupboard. I'm trying to see. Yeah, I don't have any of the rest, but I'm very eager to try this. So it's gonna be Amazon. Order
yep,
these, and I'll let you
I've
know.
got all the links. I got the links to everything in my Amazon storefront.
Oh,
So to
wonderful.
make
I'll
it
put
easy.
that link. Yeah, I'll put that link
Okay.
below too. That will be
Okay.
wonderful. Okay, Terri, any other recipes you'd like to talk about?
Oh my
This
gosh.
caught my eye. You have so many beautiful recipes, like
Thank you.
wraps and um those wraps. I mean, they look so delicious.
And you know what? That's the MSB. So that the wrap, so the whey protein powder, when you make the whey, okay, let me just start with the original recipe. The whey and the cream cheese version is very much like a pound cake texture.
Uh-huh.
So like if you add vanilla to that, you're going to get a vanilla pound cake texture. If you were to make if you were to make whey and ricotta cheese, it's not so dense flavor. It's a little bit more light. And that's usually my go-to now. So like the one that you've seen in my more recent reels, that's the one I make for like my bread, like for sandwiches and stuff. But if I'm going to make like, I made a a vanilla one the other day, and I used cream cheese in that one because I wanted it to be more dense. If you use milk, now I've never used milk protein powder and cream cheese. I've never used that one, but milk protein powder and ricotta cheese, that one has a very light texture, very airy. And that one almost works better as muffins because it can sometimes fall. I don't know. It's just, they're both just amazing and they're both very different. And I don't know how I came upon the wraps, but it is the milk protein powder and the ricotta version. And I just take it like a little tortilla and just flatten it until it gets really flat. And then that's it. And it raises a little bit and then flattens down. And then they get firm, not like kind of bendy. You stick them in the microwave for a minute or 10 seconds and they get pliable and you can roll them up. And I'm just like, wow, you know, this is pretty amazing. They don't fry very well. Like I've tried to do enchiladas or something like that. And they don't cook up that well. Like the egg life wraps do much better for that, but they do a lot of things. I've made buns and I mean, dipping sticks. I love to take cinnamon dipping sticks and dip it in my infused ghee. I mean, just all sorts of just treats.
Well, so do any of the recipes contain egg protein powder?
So that is one when going back to the protein and Angela and being protein buddy, that sort of thing. Egg white protein and egg white powder, I should say, is one thing that isn't necessarily protocol friendly. And that's because egg whites are highly glucogenic. They raise blood glucose.
Tell me about it. I know,
Yeah.
I can see it instantly in my CGM. It will start beep, beep.
Yes, yes. And yeah, I don't either. And I think that's probably one reason why I'm not real hot on eggs. I moved to yolks, you know, whatever. But anyway, so to move, you know, to keep in with keeping, we don't eat egg white powder or egg whites. We don't like, if you're going to eat eggs and you don't like them, or skip the white, eat the yolk. I think too, if I remember correctly, it's been a long time since we've discussed it, but I don't believe that egg white is a complete protein. I don't think that there's enough leucine or there is enough leucine or whatever in there to reach protein synthesis. So that's the golden thing for protocol, of course, and to heal, for anybody to heal, is to eat enough animal protein in order to reach protein synthesis. I should say, eat enough animal leucine to reach protein synthesis so that you can heal, because it's the muscle meat, it's that leucine that allows for protein synthesis, that allows the body to heal at the cellular level, at the mitochondrial level.
That's wonderful. I can eat whole eggs without a problem. The whole eggs, full eggs don't seem to be glucogenic, but the egg white, especially the egg protein powders,
yes,
don't seem to. But that said, maybe it's a different. I mean, obviously, type 1 diabetes is a different beast.
yes. Right.
And because we have to manage insulin ourselves and we have to manage it on an hourly basis, people think, okay, just take your dose and you're fine throughout the day. No, you have to manage it on an hourly basis because blood sugars go up, down, up, down, up, down.
Right.
You have to manage that. So
just hourly though, really? Is it just hour? I would have assumed, since I know blood sugar, you know, shifts 20 million times a second practically, I would have assumed it would be almost more than once an hour.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I carry my devices with me all the time. I'm constantly monitoring, and you can't take a break from it.
Right.
You can't
I have a close friend that was diagnosed with type 1 when she was 52, I think. She was 52. And so I actually said to her, I don't understand how you are alive at 52. Not only was she diagnosed as type 1, but she's also a brittle diabetic. And so, and her blood sugars have gotten up to 1200 before. Yes. I mean, she surprises the hospital when she goes in for ketoacidosis. And she's in there a lot for ketoacidosis. It's terrible. Yeah.
You know
She doesn't have her colon.
How much you benefit from
Yeah.
just simply cutting out the carbs, nothing else, just cutting out the grains and the sugars.
Yes.
That alone would heal her so much.
Yeah.
But coming back to the protein powder, so as I said, I mean, type 1 diabetes is slightly different from anyone else, perhaps who's in that group and following the migraine protocol. But I also notice blood sugar rise when I have whey protein.
Yes.
So
and you know, so
like
that gets into
my cupboard, and then I stopped them because I thought My husband can get away with it and he's fine. He's not diabetic and he feels
Mm-hmm.
great on whey protein, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, he feels great on it. He really feels like, he says, there's like, I just feel that nutrients in my head. It's an
Wow.
interesting definition, right? His head,
I
lights
think I
up.
can, I think I kind of know what he's talking about because I can feel that whenever I've had whey, just like a, I don't, so there's no snacking on protocol, snacking, if you snack anything, even if it's just a bite of butter, that's going to be used as glucose for the most part, right? Since you haven't reached your leucine threshold. So, um, I mean, so essentially it's not a snack. I eat my first meal. My first meal is always very high in leucine. It's always very protein, very meat heavy, even though there's still good fat in there. But so I always make sure I'm usually over 5 grams of leucine in that meal. So then subsequently, since my eating window is a good be between 6 and 8 hours each day, I'm synthesizing protein, an hour or so after I eat, right? And I'm continuing to synthesize the remainder of the day. So anything I eat on top of that is just going to kind of bump up my synthesization, I suppose, if that's even a word, right? So if I do have like a whey, I have a carnivore milkshake that I call which is a whey protein shake. I feel the same way. I feel like it's almost like a cup of coffee, which I don't drink. It's the same kind of feeling I had when I first took my thyroid medication. Like the world feels a little brighter, a little clearer, a little more shiny. It's like the brain awakens. The good thing about whey and the milk protein powder versus the egg white protein powder or egg white powder, since it does have leucine in there, you can reach protein synthesis using it. Now, the caveat to that is like you wouldn't have a whey protein shake with milk or half and half or heavy whipping cream in there and think that about 325 calorie meal that you're having would be substantial enough to meet your leucine needs. Maybe if you were 25, possibly, but really that's still a snack because there's no like meat in there, even though there's leucine in there, you're still going to need the other amino acids. You're still going to need some actual meat in there to help reach your leucine needs to start synthesizing protein. So that you would maybe want to have a little bit of burger with that or a couple of chicken thighs or something. And which is something I tell people to do when they start in the migraine group or when I have clients and they don't have the capacity to eat enough meat. I say, well, then you know what? Have you a little carnivore milkshake with each meal until you're able to add more meat in, and you'll subsequently reduce your dependence on the whey, which is a really nice interim use to get you used to eating more meat.
It makes sense because those shakes are really not a substitute for a
Oh, no.
meal. So if you are going to have a shake, it makes sense to have it with your meal as part of your meal, alongside perhaps piece of meat. In my coaching, I practice the same. So I just tell diabetic, look, what are you eating when you're snacking? Well, a couple of blueberries, nuts, put it on your plate. Have it as part of your meal because then you can see exactly what you're eating and how much. Although how much is less important, but because we need to take insulin for what we're eating. You lose you're just grazing all day long. You lose count of when you inject how much insulin you have on board, and now how much food you have on board. It's just ridiculous. So I just tell them, add the blueberries to your salad. Then you know exactly, you can see it in front of you. You know what you're eating. So
right.
And then you just need one injection to cover your meal, and that's it, Anyway, I don't know what else we can talk about. So let's go about the meat to wrap this up with. Angela's very encourages consumption of seafood and fish and etc. So are there any particular meats that aren't part of the protocol, like pork, because of its high omega-6 content, maybe?
Well, so she's made a post in the group recently about that very thing, like, what meats are to choose, like, or better if you're going to choose this, that, the other, whatever. So pork is one that she says to stay away from because it's pretty not so clean here in the United States. Like I know Europe, Germany, they have like such a great pork selection. I have, follow a couple people and I just am like, oh, can I come stay with you and just eat that pork, If you're going to have pork in the United States, you want to look for Iberico pork, I suppose. It's a little bit cleaner pork. But it really is. We don't food shame. We don't meat shame. It's not, we really like eat the food that you can afford, because you can't sit there and be an enabler of of a certain lifestyle. That's just not, you're not going to have people that will be inclusive of there. And I think the whole premise of not only Angela's group, but definitely for me, is I want everybody to benefit. I want everyone to learn. I want to be open and soft and welcoming. So if you're, and I don't see a problem if you're buying Walmart cheap, and I even hate to say cheap, if you're buying Walmart meat, regardless, good for you. If you're getting free meat from the pantry, good for you. If you're eating McDonald's burger patties for every meal, good for you. Bravo. I applaud you. Kudos. Keep going. That's all I have to say about that. Really.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's so important not to alienate people because they perhaps cannot afford a particular ingredient you're using. Just eat as much as you can within the protocol, and eat what you can afford, because it puts people off, right? If you say this is the only way, these are the specifics, and if you can't follow that, sorry, goodbye.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you see these people outside the space. It's got to be organic. It's got to be grass fed. It's got to be raw milk. Well, no, it doesn't. I don't buy organic meats. I get my stuff from Costco. I love it. I mean, I do. I do. I don't even buy organic. My half and half, I use A2 dairy. Milk, I should say half and half, and it's A2 brand, and it's not organic. I know that they take good care of their cows. They say they do, and they just don't have organic because it's an expensive label to pay for. Also, for all of the people that just go on and on and on about raw milk, I don't believe that there's any component in raw milk that's really much better over pasteurized and homogenized milk. And I'm going to just say, put a shout out there to all the other super tasters, in the whole wide world, that can't and won't drink raw milk, because raw milk to us tastes like dirt. It tastes like clover. It tastes like weeds. It doesn't taste like milk. I want my milk to taste the same all the time. And for that to happen, it must be homogenized for me. Okay. So, I mean, just like I don't like blue cheese, I don't like those stinky cheeses. They don't taste like food to me. Sweet potatoes didn't taste like food to me. So, so it doesn't have to be raw. It doesn't even have to be organic. I would recommend, if you could afford organic, to try to get organic. But if you can't, please just drink milk. Real animal milk.
This reminds me of, one of my clients. I didn't charge. I didn't charge this person. I'll tell you why. And it's a very relatable story to what we're talking about. She's type 1 diabetic. And so I looked at her diet, and we all agreed the pasta and the bread need to go. And then I was trying to sort of push for more meat in there, animal-based protein. She kind of looked at me and she said, look, if I include meat in every meal or every day in my diet, I won't have money for my insulin at the end of the month.
Yes.
And I thought, wow, it hit me. This person has to prioritize meat or insulin.
Yeah.
So I had to find, different ways to help this person. I said, well, how often can you eat meat? She said, on the weekends, family dinner time. I said, great. Can you eat an egg? One egg every day? She said, yeah, that's doable. I can do that. So can you eat a lot more cauliflower and broccoli and cabbage? She said, yes, because my father grows them in the farm or in the garden.
Oh, wow.
Great. And she's doing extremely well. But, if I alienated her, I know. I always tell this story to my sort of coaching groups as well. If I alienated her, I told her, sorry, I can't help you. I couldn't even chart. I couldn't even like.
Yeah, no, I mean, I couldn't
Crazy.
either. Yeah, I've done that to many people in the group as well. I've asked Angela, I said, hey, so Angela, even though I charge for this for people that can pay or whatever, there's some people that I really would like to reach out. I just can tell by their comments, and so I have done the same thing. We just reach out in PM on Messenger, and they just, do what they can. And like you said, they can't afford to eat meat every day. And so I just tell them, well, try this. This worked for me. Let's do this, and I've seen this in the group. Let's do this. And you just can't, why not? If you can help somebody, it's within you. I think that we should, it just feels so good. It feels so good.
Well, with this positive message, it does feel good to be in a position where you're helping people.
Yes.
That's what I do. That's why I do what I do.
Especially after so many years of suffering. I mean, after 20 years of suffering, missing so much of my children's growing up and life events, and now being able to pay that forward and on top of, I mean, if I had not become migraine free, I would not be here. My cookbook would not have been possible. My recipes would not be possible, So the way that this, not by any means was this a pebble drop, a ripple effect. I mean, this is humongous that her protocol is changing lives every day in huge ways.
Absolutely. One last question, Terri. Are the recipes in your carnivore cookbook all Stanton Protocol friendly? What did that
They are.
mean?
They are, yes. So that's how it all started. So they all were under the parameters of being protocol friendly. The only bad thing about the majority of my treats are they're fat heavy. So, and you're not going to be able to eat a big piece of coffee pie with your steak because, but you're going to be able to have a little sliver of coffee pie, right? My most, besides the bread recipe you asked me earlier about whichever recipe, there was that the coffee pie one is really taken off. I mean, it's literally a mascarpone coffee pie. But I had brown butter, and the bits in the bottom of brown butter that give it the nutty taste, right? So again, as a recipe creator, which I just, that hat got laid on me, was looking for something and looking for something, and you just click on recipes and you click on another, you click on the blue little highlighted and you click and you click and you click. And then as I'm clicking, I'm like, oh gosh, that looks good. And I'm saving and I'm saving and I'm saving. Well, I finally got to something that showed you how to make more of the browned butter bits. And that was the same thing when I found the bread recipe, right? And I have goosebumps right now under my shirt. I was like, this is phenomenal. So you have a stick of butter and you melt it, and then you add like 200 grams of non-fat milk powder. And you, over the next hour on very low heat, it will form these crumbles. And so I call them carnivore crumbles. I have a good friend, we call them booger butters. Butter burgers. But anyway, and they are crumbly, they're crisp, they taste very similar to graham cracker crumbs. A lot of the members from the UK, they use salted butter and it tastes like their digestive biscuits.
Right.
And if you add some flavors to those, you can make, I have a carnivore pie crust, so that goes underneath the coffee pie. I've got carnivore cookies. I've got a carnivore cookie butter. So all of these things are, since they use dairy for the most part, they're very high in fat. So, but they are all protocol friendly. They all fit within that protocol, and even our higher fat carnivores and non-carnivores alike love them too. Even my standard American diet family loving members love them too.
Brilliant. Now, all of Terri's links will be below. So please follow Terri on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and
Yes.
buy the book. Buy the
TikTok.
book.
Yeah, buy the book. The Carnivore. Yes. 40 great recipes for your tummy.
Terri's Carnivore Treats. Okay, Terri, I can't thank you enough for this wonderful, we call it chit chat in England. I
Yes.
don't know if you have that in, do you have
We
that,
do, yes.
that in Arizona?
We do.
Right. Well, Terri, you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Nayiri. You too. Thank you so much. This was so fun.
It was. Bye for now.
All righty. Bye-bye. Toodles.